the vision is to work with them. The reality is we won't be able to fund them. Because not only did the resolution gut that, thanks to our Congress, but it also gutted the ability to refund it, which I think most people have, like, the future of that is more in peril than, quite frankly, the one-year cut on that piece. One of the ways that we can do is advocate in Sacramento, albeit I don't see much hope there. But I think it's the idea of how the largest pot of money, quite frankly, that sits, I think, poorly monitored and yet to be determined if there's any outcome whatsoever, is the very giant substantial chunk of money that comes for after-school programs to all public school systems. Ours is just a massive chunk because we have such a massive amount of this money. That has to be a conversation we have to have as a community. And so if we're talking about programs that are for tutorial and like no tutoring takes place, if we're talking about programs that are for mentoring and no mentoring takes place, and we know programs that are, we actually have to have the conversation and say, okay, I know your organization was doing this, not getting any effect out of it, we got to stop funding that. And we actually have to fund ones that are able to do that.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your time with us. I just want to start off by first saying that I'm a proud LAUSD graduate, class of '99, go Bravo Knights.
Very good.
Yes, so my mom made me go to Bravo, and I thank her for that now. Then, no, I was not happy. But I digress. I did want to ask you a question about, I think we all recognize the importance of ensuring that our kids are academically prepared for the rigors of this world, but what are your thoughts on ensuring particularly our middle school and high school students are ready to become leaders, not only in our communities, but frankly anywhere in the world, given the changes that we're seeing in the economy and the workplace?
What's so interesting to me is how students talk to me about how they know they can. So they think a lot about this. While we were talking, I think, around this, I was answering a number of questions around this issue of parent engagement. This, the companion piece that we're working with is how do we help rethink student government? Because it's a structure that, yes, we should have pep rallies, and of course we should have homecoming, but it's such a tiny part of what it could be around building leadership in schools. And so we're deep into a Tiger team thinking about how do we actually capture the smart structure of SGA and figure out how does that actually build leadership across school systems. And one of the things is legitimate student voice. And we have token student voice, or sometimes none. But to make legitimate student voice, I think is a way to say we're actually serious about this issue. So don't have an answer yet, but it's an issue that is designed for this team, leadership team, to put into place in our upcoming school year.
Oh, sorry. We'll come back to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Richie Geisel. I'm with Bienvenidos. We operate community school-based health centers and LAUSD schools and provide other kinds of prevention and education programs. Former track and cross-country coach, glad to hear your background.
There you go. 4 mile state champ.
A lot of us are
we
direct
did 4
service.
miles.
Is that right? A lot of us are direct service providers. LAUSD is probably undoubtedly the largest direct service provider in the area.
Yeah.
We're grateful to have Alliance for a Better Community, Inner City Struggle, other advocacy organizations out there, but it seems to me that because you alluded to some of the aspects of the way our priorities in our society are so basically set up right now, that those of us who are providing direct services are providing those services with a decreasing amount of resource because resources are being allocated in ways that make no sense to many of us. It speaks to me to a role for advocacy for all of us and really beginning some effort to mobilize society. Do you see a role for LAUSD in advocacy initiative of this kind?
I actually do, and I know that we traditionally haven't exercised, I think, both the legitimate power of our size and our voice. So we are going to spend 4 days of the first week of May in Washington, D.C., and quite honestly do what any smart organization does, like the auto workers, is that you blitz that town. And, having spent a chunk of time there as superintendent, it's really easy to know how to blitz that town. and it's really easy to know how to have others know that you're standing there waiting for that appointment. So it's that wonderful thing is like, of course you have to see me because you don't really want this on the Post editorial page, but and you let that all kind of get seeded ahead of time. That's a piece of it at the national level, and ESE reauthorization, and the next budget cycle are the kind of two prime pieces we want to talk about. And interestingly enough, while I didn't come up in this room, the Department of Agriculture kind of is an enormous piece of where some of our energy has to go. Sacramento has been, be very totally frank, so I mean it's kind of like a one powerhouse town. So I mean you got CTA and then you got nothing else. And so that actually hasn't worked, I don't think, well for students. And I'm not saying that their voice isn't very important, it's remarkably important. It's remarkably important. I don't agree with everything that voice has to say, however. And I don't think our youth benefit from everything that voice has to say. So therefore, the vacuum is begging to be filled around that place. And you know, school boards struggle, like how do school boards do this? Well, as an 800-pound gorilla in the room, I mean, I think about saying this is a golden opportunity to man up and actually do something around this piece, but never think we're going to do that one alone. And so the power of a consortium of collaboratives is really quite the way we're doing that. So as our legislative analyst office grows to redefine itself as a legislative advocacy office, we do that across paces. So I think maybe our first success is like on the horizon. That is changing the administration date of SELF. So it looks like, you know, we finally did it this year. And the thought was everybody played a role. You all know how to do this. You know how to tip legislation. Actually, we're all kind of good at it. You know exactly how to get down and do that. And someone had to control this person, and someone had to carry this person, and someone had to make this person silent. And it looks like it's going to happen. For those of us who follow that kind of stuff, this is one of the most important tests, and that is the test that triggers reclassification for our language learners. It's in California, been issued in October. Hard for me to understand how we would expect students to gather a year's worth of knowledge from September 7th to October the 15th, whereas every other test is in May around this issue. But there was kind of, I'm going to give you my personal opinion. When you keep it that way, you can avoid an accountability conversation because you have a reason not to have the accountability conversation. Oh, the state, how can I possibly be held accountable for language learners when I, you know, this stupid test in the state, but don't move it. Okay, that is crazy talk around that. So we finally, I think, were able to do that, and it should be voted in this year.
We have time for one last question, and we have a mic over here.
Hi, John Raul Salinas. I'm a board member here for ABC. Can you commit under your watch that the truancy and the attrition rates for LAUSD will drop, and how do we measure or check the metric on that under your administration?
I can't commit to the truancy. I think attrition is the issue of dropout. That I can commit to. That we've put down very, very clearly in the issue. What we've tried to do is commit to attendance as opposed to truancy. And the issue is, it is so yeah, hold me absolutely accountable to graduation rates, cohort graduation rates. And of course that, you have to tip dropout to get to that point. And hold me accountable to student attendance. Truancy as a defined piece becomes very, very muddy around legitimate reasons why independent youth caregivers, health issues, outright disengagement in truancy, outright like failing to come to school. And so we thought a lot about this issue. So what we tried to do was straight out attendance. For right or wrong, if we actually need, and we screwed that up, then we will go back a year from now and try to get a tighter definition around that pace and go to that piece. And I'll give you the second reason why I steer slightly away from truancy and more towards attendance, is we have a debate unresolved around the criminalization of truancy in this city, and I felt far better for us, I want to lead in the conversation that is really about attendance, and then save that conversation for what it should be, which is, should we be ticketing students and parents around that pace, or should we be engaging full attendance? That was where I went to that.
Thank you. I'd like us all to please offer a warm applause to Dr. Deasy. But before we do part, I would like to offer you an opportunity to give some closing remarks, some things that you think we can go away with. You've said a lot in terms of the role of community, the vision that you have for the district. What would you like us to leave with so that we can get ready and...
I want to talk about two things. One very, very direct and upfront about this, and of the moment right now. And this has to do with this current budget situation. I think I want to be just super clear about this. We have a $408 million hole in the budget. We have 9 unions, and we do not have a state that's going to give us a solution. So it's either an all-cut scenario, which we've been very clear what those cuts are. I mean, the dismantling of the place. I've offered the board and the system a 1-year tourniquet, which basically stops this bleeding while we have a chance to do exactly the issues we talked about, and that is get our hands around Sacramento and solve this. And that has been, for us as an entire system, to take a combination of 12 furlough days and to borrow from an account which has a substantial balance in it, which does not change health benefits. It's been a cushion that's been sitting there because, quite honestly, we've been funding health benefits and the population has been declining, and so it builds a surplus, which is great. You should have a surplus of health benefits so you can offset huge increases. Every single labor union is trying to decide whether they would do this, and the reality is we would restore, reverse nearly every single cut at school basis, except one. We're not reversing the loss of federal funds and the additional Title I. Other than that, they would all be able to come back. I'm not reversing the cuts at Beaudry on this case. Very simple. We have about 8,000 or 9,000 employees who are going to lose their job in a month and a half if the labor organizations do not say yes or no to this issue. So if they say no, I don't want to hear from anybody that we lay people off, because we have a way where we do not have to do that, myself included. And if they say yes, then we have a different conversation about how do we take this 1-year solution and parlay this into a multi-year funding solution so we don't keep revisiting this all the time. So I'm super clear on that piece. The second piece, which has got nothing to do with that, has to do with the fact of many people are sitting on the sidelines determining whether they're going to be all in on LAUSD in its future. And I understand that. We don't exactly have this massive reputation for, like, you know, lean, thoughtful enterprise. But if we let this one pass at this moment with a new board, new union leadership, a new administration, a mayor, one of our mayors, we've got 23 others, I'm always mindful of that, but the mayor in LA who wants to be aligned on this issue, and the state on not knowing where it should go, and the federal government looking for a way for public education in the larger urban center, then we will be very, have ourselves to blame several years down the road. And so opportunity moments like this are rare, and quite frankly, they're perishable. It's kind of like really good fresh food. It won't be that way for a long period of time. And I think we all have an obligation around that and a choice. That's what I was thinking.
Again, and we hope that this is the first of many conversations with community groups throughout the year and the many years. Thank you all again for coming and for your questions. Have a good day.
Thanks.